So just confirm before starting. My voice is audible, right?
Yes, sir.
So last class, what we did means we studied about the control statements. Um, in control statements, two things. One was the selection part, and the next one was a repetitive part. That is iteration statements. Selection statements, if, nested if else ladder, then switch. We studied that. Today we'll talk about the nested switch statement. So the statement, mm, this nested switch light, this you would have not studied, right? So this we have not seen in C and C++. We'll see how it works in Java. Java supports nested switch statement. So these are the Java selection statements. If, nested if else if, switch statement, nested switch statement. After, so this is from the nested, this is from the selection side. From the selection side, we have studied in the last class, if else, nested if, then if else, if ladder, along with that switch. So in addition to this, today we will study about nested switch. What is nested switch? So this is the one which is additional when you compare it with C and C++. And from the repetitive side. So this is for selection part. From the iteration statements, from the iterative statements. So we studied about we studied mm, do while. So we studied about do while, then while, and for loop. So in addition to these three, we will study about the extended version of for loop, which we will call it as for each loop. So we will call this as for each loop. So these are the two additional things. So remember, nested switch, for each loop. And after this, after when we cover these two concepts, we'll talk about the statement, the jumping statements like return, break, continue. So five topics. What is nested switch statement? How it will work in Java? What is this for each loop? How it will be used in Java? Then the jumping statements, return, break, continue. So these are the concepts which we'll be studying in today's class. So these are the topics which we'll be studying in today's class. Okay, so now let's go to the slide. Let's go to that slide. And we'll talk. We'll talk. So first thing is switch statement. So first switch statement. The switch statement means it will have the expression. That expression will be evaluated, and the evaluated expression will be compared with case value one. If both are matching, it will execute value one. Otherwise, it will compare with value two. If it is matching, it will execute with the statements present in value two. Like this, it will do the selection. It will do the selection. So comparing the expression value with the values that are there in cases, and whatever value is matching, that will be executed. If none of the value is matching, default will be executed. So this is the working of switch statement. So this is the working of switch statement. So one second, someone is the lobby. Okay. So this is a working of switch statement. So now we'll talk about what is nested switch statement. A switch statement within another switch statement, you can call it as the nested switch statement. So the same thing, the same definitions which we have studied, right? So what is nested if? Within an if statement, there is another if statement. So what is nested class? Within a class, we have one more class. So the nested, whenever you come across this term nested, it is like you're embedding that concept within another thing. So now we are talking about the switch statement. So you know how the switch statement works. How the switch statement works? It will check the expression with the values. So whatever value is matching, the statements corresponding to those values will be executed. And after that, we have break statement. Break statement will make the control to come out of the switch statement. So break is optional for the default case. For the other cases, if you are not using the break means, it will proceed with the execution of next case values. So now what is nested switch statement means? We have one switch statement. We have one switch statement. So the syntax is switch. So this is the syntax for the switch. So within the switch statement, you're using one more switch statement. Within the switch statement, for some cases like case one or something, here you're using one more switch statement. So this is the nested switch. So nested switch means you're using the switch statement as a part of the statement. So for example, this expression will evaluate to 1. So 1 and 1 are matching. So when this expression is matching with the case value 1, we know that the statements of case 1 will be executed. So in the statement of case 1, we have switch statement. So here also the switch will be evaluated. Here also the switch will be evaluated. So what does nested switch means? You can use nested switch as a part of statements, as a part of statement sequence of an outer switch. So this we will call it as nested switch statement. So since the switch statement is having its own block, since the switch statement is having its own block, so this is one block. So since the switch statement is having its own block, so there will never be any issues that will arise between the constants, arise between the constants which are there in the inner switch when compared with the outer switch. For example, I will explain this line with the example so that you will understand. So first thing is I'll write I'll write one switch, I'll write one switch, I'll write one switch statement, and for this I'll give some value as um, some expression. So after this, so this is the beginning of the switch statement, um, ending of the switch statement. So this is the beginning of the switch statement and ending of the switch statement. So for this, I have one case one. So for this case one, I will write one switch statement. Switch. For this, I'll take it as some. So this is outer switch. This is inner switch, right? I'll write it as inner expression. I'll just write in inner expression. So that is just a name. So after this, this is the beginning of the inner switch, ending of the inner switch. So for this I will write cases. Case value I will take it as 0, 0. Some printing statements. This some printing statement break. Again case 1, some printing statement like system.out.println something. This is case 1. This is case 2. Since there is no space, I'm not writing. Or you can write it as system dot out dot println. This is case 1. So I'm just writing some print statement. This is case 1. So this you can write this line here. After that, break.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
The screen is being lagged, sir.
the screen is getting lagged. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Someone teach the lobbies.
One second. I'll just refresh the router. Just wait for a minute. So, what is the delay? What is the lag delay? Like, if I write it now, so how long is it taking to get reflected?
So 1 minute or 1.5 minute like that, sir.
Let me check. One second. I'll just check. Now, whether you're able to I restarted the router now, whether you're able to see any changes. So I'm writing one, two,
Yes,
three,
sir.
four. Okay. So, uh, so again, since there was some delay, I'll just explain this switch statement again. So within a switch statement, you're using one more switch statement that we will call it as the nested switch statement. So that was the first statement which I wrote. So after this, I told you the one more statement. I told you one more statement where each switch statement will have its own block. So there will not be any any issues that will arise from the case values with the inner switch and those which are there in the outer switch. For example, I'll write one switch statement. I'll write one switch statement. I'll call this as outer. This is outer switch. No, I'll write the expression as outer, and this is the beginning of the switch, ending of the switch. So after this, I'll write case 1. So for this case 1, I will use inner switch. So switch inner. So this is the inner switch. So this is the beginning of the inner switch, ending of the inner switch. So after the ending of this inner switch, I am using break statement. I am using break statement. So inside I'll write for inner switch. So this is the beginning of inner switch, ending of inner switch. I'll write case 0, some statements like system.out.println. This is inner switch 0. I like that I'll write some statement. This is inner switch 0. After that, I'll write the break statement and I will write case 1, system.out.println. This is inner switch break 1. So this is inner switch via case 1. This is inner switch case 1. I'll just write some statement. I'll write break. So what I told, switch statement will define its own block. So this is one block actually. So this is one block this is one block of inner switch, and this is the block of outer switch. So you just know this beginning of the parenthesis and ending of the parenthesis will mark the block of outer switch, and this beginning of parenthesis and ending of parenthesis will mark the boundaries of inner switch, means the block of inner switch. So now since these switches are having its own block, the conflict will not arrive between the case value. See, here also case 1 is there, here also case 1 is there, but there will not be any conflict because this case 1 is within the block of inner switch. This case 1 is within the block of outer switch. So this point you should remember. So like this I can write, and the rest of the statements I can write it as case 2, case 3, case 4. The cases for the outer switch statement. So this is how the nested switch works. So here, even though if you're having, see, I told you that within the case you cannot use the same constant. Within the case you cannot use 0 and 0. You will get an error because the values are same. But between the inner switch and outer switch, you can use the case values which are same because they are maintaining their own block. So for example, see here, this case 1 value belongs to outer switch. So this case 1 value belongs to inner switch. So there will not be any um, issues. Then we won't get any issues even if you are maintaining the case value as same between the switches. I mean between the two switches. So mm, see, the main thing of using switches, um, switch will be used only for testing the equality. So it will only look for the match. It will only look for the match between the expression and the value. So whatever matches, so that statements will be executed. So and also this switch is more efficient when compared to the if statement. So this is the working of inner switch. So what is inner switch? We're using one switch statement within another switch statement that we will call it as the nested switch. And here in our examples, what point to remember in nested switches? The constants, the values, the case values can be used. So, but within the switches, I mean within, for example, within the inner switch, the case values should not match. But in between the switches, the case value can match. So this case one is different when compared to this case one. So this is the working of nested switch statement. So how means, for example, how this will work means, for example, if the value of outer, if the value of outer is, if the value of outer is, assume if the value of outer is 2, it will execute the statements of case 2. If the value of the outer is 3, it will execute the statements of case 3. If it is other than, if it is other than 1 2 3, for example 4, it will execute. If I will write default, right, default will be the last one, so it will execute the statements of default. So what if the value of outer is 1? If the value of outer is 1 means it will execute this block, it will execute this part, it will execute this part. So if the value of outer is 1, case 1 will be executed. If the value of outer is 1, case 1 will be executed. So for case 1, we have switch. We have a switch statement. So case switch has inner. So if outer is 1, if outer is 1, case 1 will be executed. So in case 1 also, we have switch statement. So switch statement given by the expression inner. So here, if the value of inner is 0, if the value of inner is 0, this is inner case block with value 0. So this line will be executed. If the value of inner is 1, this is, so this statement, so whatever I've written here, that will be executed. So if it is not with 1 or 0, if it is something like 3 4 5 6 something, so here also I would have written default. So for while explaining, I have not written the default. So if I have written the default means if values other than 0 and 1 means the default statement will be executed. So this is the working of nested switch. Any doubts here? Any doubts with respect to this nested switch statement?
No, sir.
Okay, so this is understood, right? See, in between the meeting, you people don't leave. Okay, so the next part is um, for each loop. So this is very important. So this extended version of for loop. So as you look into the syntax, we will explain this in detail. So this is very important. See, most of the time for traversing part, you'll be using this for each loop only in Java. So we have studied while loop, do while loop, for loop in C, C++, Java. So in Java, additional to this while, do while, and for, we have for each loop. So we will call it as the for each loop or extended for loop also. Some will call it as the extended for loop also. So, so what is this for each loop? So, why it is used or why it is designed? So this is an improvement. This is, we will not call it an improvement. This is some modification made to the for loop, so that they will call it as the for each loop. So this is the for, sometimes they'll call it as a for each style also. So what means, it is a feature, which the programmer had expected from Java. So why we are using this for each style means going through the, for traversing through the list of collection of objects, for traversing through the list of objects, for traversing through the collection of objects, like you want to visit each and every element of the array, that we will call it as traversal. Or moving through the objects from first element in the array to last element in the array. So if the array contains 5 elements means I want to move from array element at array 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is traversal, visiting each and every element of the array in order, in sequence. So for that, we can use the for each loop. So for each loop is designed for traversing through the collection of objects. So collection of objects means arrays. So you cannot use it. See, you cannot use this for each loop for just see this for each loop or for loop, why they are designed means they are used for accessing the objects. So accessing the collection of objects like arrays. So arrays means you know that it contains elements of same type. It's a collection of multiple elements. So this can be used only for traversal. This can be used only for traversal from the beginning of the list to the ending of the list. So the other way is not possible. So the other way is not possible. Like from end of the list to the beginning of the list is not possible, and you have to start from the middle of the array. So that is also not possible. So you have to start from the beginning of the list to the end of the list only. That is from start to finish. You cannot start from between the array elements to the end of the array elements. You cannot do that, and also you cannot traverse from end of the array to the beginning of the array. So this is how the for each loop is designed. So for each loop is basically used for moving through the elements like arrays from the beginning to end, that is from start to finish. So for each loop, how to use for each loop? See, um, in C sharp, the for each loop can be identified through the keyword for each. So there is, if you're using this keyword called for each, so it is known that you're using the for each style, that is in C sharp. But in Java, this is the syntax. So this is the syntax of for each loop. So this is the syntax of for each loop in for each version of the loop in Java. So the first thing is, what is the advantage of this method? Means you are not using any keyword. You are not using this keyword called for each. The same keyword which is there for loop, you are using that. So this we will call it as the enhanced for loop. The enhanced for loop. Why? Because the for the for loop only, for the keyword for only, you are adding the functionality. So sir, how to this for each loop works? So the first thing is we'll learn about the syntax. We'll learn about the syntax. So we have the syntax for something called collection, type itr variable. So this is the syntax which I have written, right? So here type means data type. So type means the data type. So you know that we have studied 8 data types, right? So here mm, the type means the data type, and this is the name of variable. The itr var means the name of the variable which will store or which will receive the value from the collection one at a time from the beginning to end. So the first one is the data type, the second one is the name of the variable which will receive the value from the collection from beginning of the list or the beginning of the collection to end of the collection. So this is the thing. So this collection means the elements which you want to traverse. The collection means it can be array. So if you want to travel through an array from the beginning of the array to the end of the array, so this collection will be that array name. The collection which you want to traverse is given by this keyword, is specified by this collection parameter. So for now we'll be talking only about arrays. So since this is the basics of Java, we'll be talking about only arrays. So even we can use the objects. Even you can travel through the array of objects also. So as of now, since this is the beginning or the basics of Java, we'll talk about the examples of arrays. So for every iteration, so how it will work means, for every iteration, one element from the array will be received by this itr variable. So this process will continue from the start until the end of the array is reached. So once it reaches the end of the array, the for loop will stop. So the for loop will repeat until you get all the elements from the array. And also this iteration variable will receive one element at a type, means one element at a time. And also the type should be same. So I mean, see, what is the type of this iteration variable? It is of see, the data type of this iteration variable and the element data type should match. So we'll explain this with the example so that you people will understand it better. So for example, I've declared an array by the name. By the name, what can I give the name of the array means? I'll give it as number. I'll give it as the number as the name of the array. It will contain some uh, 10 elements: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 100. So array, this number is the name of the array, which contains 10 elements of type integer, and the elements are initialized from 10 to 100. And also number of zero contains. So if I go with index position, means number of zero contains 10, one contains 20, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you try to access 40, means you can access by the index number of 3. So if you write like this, you are able to access 40. So if I write number of 7, you are able to access 80. So I'm just talking about the array accessing and all. So now how this for each loop works. So mm, first thing is I'm declared an array. So first you understand what is this array. So here number is the name of the array. The data type of the array is integer and it contains 10 elements. Now I will write the for each version. Now I will write the for each version of this array. So what this for each version will do means, it will it will move from the beginning of the array to end of the array. So what is the syntax? So what is the syntax means, the first word will be the keyword for. After that, so there will be a colon, right? I'll just write the colon here. One second, I'll just give some space. I'll write the colon here. So the first element is the type. The first element is type and variable name. Data type, variable name. I told you that this data type should be compatible with the collection data type. So here my collection is number. So here my collection is number. So the data type of the collection is integer. So even I will name it as integer. Integer. Then the second part is variable name. I'll just give some variable name as I'll just give the variable name as some n. Give the variable name as n, and the third should be collection. So here the collection is num. So now, so this is the declaration. After that, I'll just write system.out.println n. So now we'll talk about the working. So we'll talk about the working of this for each loop. We'll talk about the working of this for each loop. So any doubt with the syntax? See, first thing is, I told you that this for each contains 3 parameters. So first one is the data type, the second one is the variable name, the third one is the collection. So collection means the array which we want to traverse. So I declared an array by the name number. It contained 10 elements. So I want to traverse from, I want to traverse that array. So for that I've created a for each loop where I given the data type. The first thing is the data type of this variable and the collection should match. So number is my array which I want to traverse. So for this number it is given by the data type integer. So I am declaring a variable which has the data type as integer. After that, the second is the variable name. I have given n as my variable name, and I want to travel through the array called num. So for that, I have given num as the array name because that is the array which I want to traverse. So the name of the array I have given in the third case, and that is after the colon. So now once I have written how this works. So I told you that this will travel from the beginning of the array to end of the array. So first time what happens means first time when the loop is run, first time for intent the number of 0 will be received by n. So first time when the loop is run, n will receive number of 0. So number of 0 means n will receive 10. So after that I'm printing value of n. So first time it will print 10. After that first iteration, for the next iteration, this n will receive number of 1. So number of 1 means 20. So it will receive 20. So after that, the third time it will receive number of 2, which will be which will be which will be 30. Fourth time when it is repeated, it will receive number of 3, which will be 40. So every time this n will receive one value from the array, and this process will get repeated until it receives all the values of the array. So until it receives 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and the last cycle for the 10th repetition it will receive number of 9, which is 100. So once it receives number of 9, the loop will end. So this is the working of for each loop. Any doubts here? Any doubts here? Any doubts with respect to this? Whether you understood this concept? See, first time when the loop is iterated, it will receive the number which is at number of 0. Here in our example, 10. Second time when it is repeating, the number at index 1. Third time when it is repeated, the number at index 2. Like this, it will continue till the end of the array is reached. So any doubts here? Any doubts, or whether you understood this, how it is working? See, it will only perform the iteration. So it will only perform the traversal, like it will only perform the traversal from beginning of the list to end of the list. Any doubts here? Whether you understood this concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So see, the same thing even you can repeat for two-dimension array also. You can the same concept you can use for two-dimension array also. So I'll just tell you the syntax. How this can be used for 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, like that. So for example, um, I'll declare. Okay, I'll write it here only. The space is sufficient. So there is one array given by the name. I'll give it as A2D. So a two-dimension array, I'll give it as A2D, a 2D array. So I'm just giving it as A2D name. Two dimension, no. So I'll write it as like this: new int. It might contain some 3 rows, 4 columns, whatever it may be. I'm not giving you the values. I'm not telling the values. So how to write? How to write for each loop for this? You know that in order to access a single dimension array, you need one for loop. In order to access a two dimension array, you need two for loop. So here also we need two for each loop. Here also we need two for each loop. So we'll write it as two for each loop. For for. So we need two for each loop. So see, first thing is the data type. The first thing is the data type. So here is integer data type. I want to traverse this array. So right hand side, the name of the array. First variable will be the first parameter will be the data type integer. After that I want to traverse through the array. No, so here I'll be traversing. So since it is a two dimension array, so here instead of here I was traversing through a variable, so here I will traverse through array. Two dimensions. See here, one dimension was there, only one variable was sufficient. Here I have two dimensions. So since I have two dimensions, I have to store the array values. Whatever value I'm getting, I have to store that in an array. That means it will traverse one row at a time, one row of arrays at a time. When we have two dimension means you're traversing through one row of data. Like when the first time when the loop when first time when it is run, this n will contain elements of row 0. Next time it will contain elements of row 1, elements of row 2, elements of row 3. So inside in for this inner for loop, the process will be same. So now when it is run for the first time, you have got the elements of row 0. So the same thing, you just need to write it here, the name of the array, the data type of this array, and some value k. So using this, now you can travel. So first time when this is run, so this is a 2D array. So this is a 2D array. I'll write like this. 2D array. I'll write like this. So this is row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3. So first time when you run, first time when the outer for loop, what outer for loop this parameter is storing means it is storing row 0 first time, row 1 next time, row 2 third time, row 3 fourth time. So now in order to visit each elements, in order to visit elements of row 0, elements of row 1, elements of row 2, elements of row 3, you're using inner for loop. So first time when the iteration is run, this will contain row 0. So in order to visit the elements of row 0, you're using the syntax which we discussed here. So this is how the for each loop can be used for arrays with two dimension. So mm so what to tell means, here also the same thing. You need to check the data type. So if it is a 3D array, if it is a 3D array means the first you need three for loops. If it is a 3D array means, that example also will write it here. So if it is a 3D array means, I'll just tell you the syntax. If it is a 3D array, means for the first for each loop, the data type will be integer. So here you will be using a 2D array to store that, then the name of this. So in the second phase, in the second for each loop, you will be using a 1D array to store the elements of 2D. In the third case, you will be using, the third scenario will be using uh, a variable to read the contents of 1D array. So like this. So so you just need to look into the array, and based on that you can modify, or you can use the syntaxes. Whether you understood this, so usually 3D and all you will not be using here, one dimension and two dimension maximum thing which you will study. Whether you understood how to use this for each loop, for one dimension array, for two dimension array, whether you got this point, yes or no? See, only remember one thing, when 2D array means the outer for each loop will take care of, it will read one row at a time. One row at a time means one row at a time. The inner for loop will read all the elements that are present in that row. So that is how this for each loop will work for two dimension. Any doubts here? Whether you understood this for each, for multi-dimension array? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
See, next thing is the break statement. So break statement means, so it is a jumping statement. So basically the break statement will be used in switch statements. It will be used in looping statements. It will be used to come out of that particular control statements. For example, for example like switch, I'll just go to that example. See, for example, like switch. So case one statement is being executed. Now you will reach, after that it will print I is 1 and it will control will come to the break statement. So once it encounters break statement means the program will come out of this switch statement. The program will come out of that switch statement. So this is the usage of break statement. So what this break statement will do means when you are using inside the switch, it will come out of the switch. If you are using inside the for loop, for I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, and if I write it as some break statement here, so once the control reaches this break statement, it will come out of this for loop. So usually this break statement will be written in um, for loop, like for I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. If I matches some value, you just come out of the loop. So the same example, see the same example you can check here. They have initialized a for loop to read from 0 to 100. Here the loop is reading from 0 to 100, so it will print from 0 to 100 values. So it was designed like this. So this statement, what it will do means it will read, it will repeat from the value of 50 to the value of 100, I mean 99. So 0 to 99, this loop will repeat 100 times. But whenever the value of 5 matches 10, you just come out of that loop. So that's why if the value of 5 is not 10, you just proceed with the execution. So when I is 0, 0 is not equal to 10, so 0 will be printed, 1 will be printed, 2 will be printed, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But when I reaches 10, 10 is equal to 10. So condition will match. So it will come out of this for loop. So that means it is coming out of that for loop when the condition is getting matched. So break statement, it can be used to come out of the switch statement. Once the operation is done, it can be used to come out of the for loop, while loop, or do while loop. It can be used to come out of the um, looping statements also. So this is one of the so this is how the break statement will be used. So whenever, if we have two for loop statements, uh, for loop statement, so within this you are using one more for loop statement. So if I'm using break here, so this break will help you to come out only of the inner loop. So this break statement will help you to come out of the inner loop, not the outer loop. So wherever you are using that break statement, so it will come out of that control statement. Two statements are there, two for loops are there. So inside, for the inside for loop, if I'm using break statement, the control will come out of the inner for loop only, but the outer for loop will work as usual. So this is the one point which you can remember. So when you're using multiple loops, or when you're using nested loop, the break statement is applicable to uh, the loop in which you are called. For example, one outer loop is there and inner loop is there, and if you are using the break statement, that will be applicable only for the innermost loop. And this is the one point which I wanted to tell. This is how the break statement. This is how the break statement is being used in Java. Uh, so uh, After this, continue statement. So what is this continue means? It is almost similar to break statement, but here the control will just skip only that particular repetition, and the rest it will continue. For example, I'll just explain this example. I'll just explain this um, example. See, how the continue will work means, for example, I've written a statement for I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. So if the value of I is 2, I'll call break statement. I'll call break statement. So how it will work means, first time I will be 0, then 0 less than 1, it will come inside this loop, then 0 equal to 2. So 0 equal to 2 will be false. So I'll write one print statement. I'll just write print statement system.out.println. I will print the value of I. I'll just print the value of I. So 0 equal to 2. So I'll print I. The first time value of I is 0. So, so after this I will become I plus plus means I will become 1. I is equal to 1. 1 less than 5. 1 less than 5. Condition will be true, so it will come inside the loop. It will come inside the loop, and also 1 equal to 2 will be false. So 1 equal to 2, this will not be executed. Again it will print the value of I 1. After that again I plus plus. When I plus plus means I will become 2. 2 less than 2, sorry, 2 less than 5, come inside the for loop. 2 equal to 2. So this time 2 and 2 is equal. So it will come to the break statement. It will come to the break statement. Once the condition reaches break statement, it will come out of the for loop. So for this line, the output will be 0, 1 when I am using break. So what continue will do means, if I'm using continue here, so when 2 is equal to 2, control will come inside the block and it will see continue. So it will skip only the current iteration. So it will skip only the current iteration, and the control will go to this increment, meaning it will not execute this line. This line will be skipped and the value of I is equal to 2. So that's why again it will not print the value of I. Again the process will repeat. I is equal to 3, 3 less than 5, 3 equal to 2. It is not equal, print the value of 5. So 0, 1, 3, again I will become 4, 4 less than 5, 4 equal to 2, not matching. Again print the value of 5, 4. After that it will come out of the control, because when I becomes 5, 5 less than 5 will be false. So remember, when you're using continue, only for that statement, when that matches, it will be skipped and the remaining iterations will continue. So you're skipping only a particular condition and you're continuing with the rest of the code. So this is how the continue statement will work. So in continue statement, that causes the control to be transferred directly to the condition expression that will control the loop. But in the for loop, the control will go to the first iteration, like the control goes to the first, to the iteration portion, that means I plus plus, I minus minus of the for statement, and then to the conditional statement. So this is how the continue works. So in our example also, see in this example also, um, it will print. So first it will print, 0. After that it will print, see, first I is equal to 0, 0 less than 10. So first it will print the value of I, which is 0. Again 0 modulus 2, it will be true. So since it is true, it will skip this part. And again it will go to the increment. So increment means I plus plus, So I plus plus means I will become 1. So again it will print 1. So when I is equal to, when one more 2, when 1 more 2 is not equal to, when 1 more 2 means the remainder will be 1. So this continue will not be executed. So since the continue will not be executed, the system.out.println, this statement will be executed. So this statement will be executed. So this is how the continue statement works. So you just remember this point. So continue means it will skip only the particular iteration where the condition is met, and the rest of the part will continue as usual itself. So this is the continue statement, and the last jumping statement is the return. So return, you would have written the statements it is used to come out. It is used to come out from the method. Method in the sense function. So whenever you want to come out from the function, you will be using the return statement. So what this return statement will do means it will give the program control to transfer back to the caller of the method. So so whenever, so at any point of time in any at any time in a method, the return statement will make the execution to come back to the caller of the method, meaning it will terminate. So the return method will terminate the method which is being executed. So for example, so here you can check. So on calling this statement, it will return the control to the program which has called this function. So that is how the return statement works. So the return statements you would have used in the methods, right? Like integer add something. So after that you will calculate the result c is equal to a plus b. The last line you will use the return. So on encountering this return statement, the control will be transferred from this add function to the function which has called the return. I mean the function which has called this return this caller the caller method. So what we are using return means return is used to come out of the method or to terminate the method and transfer the control to the caller of the method. So on encountering this return method in this add function, the control will be transferred to the caller of that add function. So this is how the return statement works. So return statement is almost similar to like a break. Just so the break means it will come out of the loop. So the return means it will come out of the function. So you just keep this in point in mind. So I think I'll stop the class now. So just go through this. You just go through these concepts because the forage loop, and the nested switch, they're the new topics. The other topics are almost similar. So just go through these concepts, and if you have any doubts, if anything, just let me know. So I'll stop the class now.